You know, there's something really captivating about the way Disney continues to reinvent itself for modern audiences, and Moana 2026 is a perfect example of that evolution. Right off the bat, the trailer hits you with this sense of scope and wonder that's both nostalgic and refreshingly new. I watched it, and honestly, it felt like a blend of epic adventure and deeply personal storytelling, something that Disney has been sharpening for decades, but here, they really push the envelope. Dwayne Johnson is back lending his voice to the demigod Maui, and I have to say, his charisma really comes through in the snippets we see. There's a moment in the trailer where Maui flexes, not just physically, though that's impressive, but in that almost theatrical, larger-than-life way that Johnson owns effortlessly. That scene alone communicates so much about the tone of this film. It's bold, playful, but with an undercurrent of something more profound. What struck me immediately was the visual language the trailer employs. The ocean itself almost feels like a character. You see these sweeping shots of waves that shimmer like liquid glass, catching the light in a way that feels both magical and grounded in reality. And the way the camera moves, sometimes hovering close to the water's surface, sometimes pulling back to reveal vast islands dotting the horizon, it creates this sensation that you are actually being pulled into the world Moana inhabits. This isn't just CGI for spectacle, it feels purposeful. Each frame seems meticulously composed to communicate her journey, not just physically across the sea, but emotionally as well. Then there's Moana herself, voiced by Laga'aia in this iteration, and I have to admit, her performance in the trailer is striking. Her voice carries this mixture of youthful determination and quiet vulnerability. The way she delivers lines in those early moments of hesitation, you can feel the internal conflict. The trailer gives us glimpses of her standing at the edge of the shore, looking out at the endless blue, and it's almost cinematic shorthand for a coming-of-age story that's going to resonate on multiple levels. She's not just another Disney princess. She feels layered, relatable, and grounded in her cultural context, which is something the previous adaptation touched on, but this one seems to dig even deeper. One of the more fascinating things about this trailer is how it teases the stakes. There's a sense that Moana's journey isn't just about proving herself or fulfilling a destiny imposed from the outside. From what we see, it's about her relationship with her people, the land, and most importantly, her own identity. There are brief shots of islands in turmoil, of villagers looking anxiously toward the horizon, and that subtly hints at the narrative tension. It's not hammered over your head, which is smart. The trailer trusts its audience to pick up on the nuances, and that's something I really appreciate about this marketing approach. It's engaging without being overwhelming. Maui's role, as teased, seems to balance comic relief and mentorship. There's a sequence in the trailer where he's interacting with Moana, delivering lines with that signature deadpan humor, and it creates a dynamic that feels fresh. It's not just him being funny for the sake of a laugh. The humor underscores a deeper narrative function, showing us the tension between Moana's responsibility and Maui's own history of heroism and mistakes. In just under 2 minutes of trailer time, they managed to suggest an entire arc of interpersonal growth without spoon-feeding it, which is a remarkable feat. And then there's the music. Even in trailer form, the soundtrack is commanding. I caught snippets of thematic motifs that seem to blend traditional Polynesian instruments with modern cinematic scoring. It's this duality of ancient and contemporary that gives the trailer an almost ritualistic cadence. There's a scene where Moana is rowing through turbulent waters, and the music swells just as she meets a pivotal challenge. The beats and melodic rises feel synchronized with the emotional beats of the story, which indicates that the film is likely to use its score not just as background filler, but as a storytelling device, echoing the narrative shifts and character development. The visual effects deserve a dedicated nod. There are moments in the trailer where water, wind, and even fire elements interact in ways that feel tangible, almost tactile. You see the ocean parting, splashes catching the sun, and even Maui's tattoos, animated and expressive, communicating emotion. These aren't just flashy visuals, they contribute to world building and character development in subtle ways. There's a sophistication to the animation quality that seems aimed at both younger audiences and adults who are keenly aware of cinematic craft. One thing that stands out in the trailer is the pacing. Unlike many modern trailers that cram in as many high-octane moments as possible, this one breathes. There are deliberate pauses where the camera lingers on character expressions, on environmental details, and those beats allow the audience to absorb the emotional stakes. You get a sense of scale, but also intimacy, which is difficult to achieve in just a 2-minute trailer. This pacing choice tells me that the film itself is likely to balance spectacle with character-driven moments, rather than swinging to extremes of one or the other. I also noticed that the trailer subtly foreshadows conflicts beyond the obvious hero's journey. There are hints of environmental challenges, perhaps even mythological undertones that go beyond the standard Disney narrative. These visual hints, dark clouds gathering over islands, foreboding silhouettes in the water, suggest that Moana's journey will test her in ways that are both physical and moral. The trailer doesn't explain it outright, which is clever, because it preserves intrigue and positions the audience to anticipate a layered story, rather than a straightforward adventure. The cinematic language in the trailer also speaks to a very intentional direction. The way shots linger, the timing of cuts, and even the choice of angles evoke both classical Disney charm and contemporary blockbuster sensibilities. There's a certain fluidity to the transitions, from close-ups that emphasize emotion to sweeping vistas that highlight scale, that communicates a confidence in the material. It's a visual rhythm that keeps you engaged without feeling manipulative, and that's rare in promotional material these days. Another element I found compelling was the interplay between Moana and her environment. There are scenes where the ocean almost seems alive, responding to her movements, echoing her emotions. That's not just a technical flourish, it visually externalizes her inner journey. Similarly, Maui's interactions with the natural world, often humorous but sometimes revealing, mirror a thematic exploration of humanity's connection to the environment. The trailer manages to suggest that these elements aren't mere backdrops. They are integral to the narrative and thematic architecture of the film. Culturally, the trailer hints at a respectful portrayal of Polynesian heritage. Costume details, linguistic touches, and even the depiction of community rituals indicate that the filmmakers are leaning into authenticity. It's evident that a lot of research and consultation went into crafting this world, which adds credibility and depth. You can feel that the creators aren't just telling a story, they're inviting audiences into a living, breathing culture with its own internal logic and aesthetic coherence. Finally, the emotional through line of the trailer is what really lingers. There's a sense of yearning in Moana's expressions, in her interactions with Maui, and in the sweeping vistas that frame her journey. The trailer suggests a narrative that's as much about self-discovery and personal courage as it is about external adventure. It's a delicate balance, and judging from what's teased, the film seems poised to deliver a cinematic experience that is emotionally resonant, visually stunning, and narratively layered, appealing to a wide range of audiences while maintaining a unique voice. Overall, the trailer works on multiple levels. It sets up character arcs, hints at mythic stakes, and showcases technical achievements without overloading the audience. It's both an invitation and a promise, signaling that Moana 2026 is a film that respects its audience's intelligence and emotional capacity. The combination of Dwayne Johnson's charismatic presence, Catherine Laga'aia's nuanced voice work, breathtaking visuals, and a score that feels narratively integrated makes this one of the more compelling Disney trailers in recent memory. Even before seeing a single frame of the full movie, you can sense that this is going to be an immersive experience that rewards attention, reflection, and emotional engagement. When talking about Moana 2026, the cast is one of the film's strongest pillars, not just because of their star power, but because of the way each performer brings depth, nuance, and cultural authenticity to their roles. At the heart of the film is Moana herself, voiced by Catherine Laga'aia, a rising talent whose performance carries the emotional weight of the entire story. Laga'aia approaches Moana not just as a heroic figure or a young explorer, but as a deeply human character whose courage is intertwined with doubt, responsibility, and familial loyalty. In the trailer and early clips, you can already sense the subtleties she brings. The hesitations in her voice when facing the unknown, the lightness and humor she interjects in moments of self-discovery, and the natural warmth she radiates when interacting with her community. It's rare to find a voice actor who can carry both the epic scale of a Disney adventure and the intimate human moments with such authenticity, and Laga'aia nails it. Her vocal performance gives Moana a believable sense of agency. She's not just a character moving through a plot, she's someone whose choices feel earned, whose fears feel real, and whose triumphs feel deeply satisfying. Opposite Moana is the larger-than-life demigod Maui, voiced once again by Dwayne Johnson, who has become synonymous with the character in popular culture after the original animated film. Johnson's performance in the 2026 iteration deepens what fans loved about Maui while introducing new layers. In this version, Maui is portrayed not only as mischievous and charismatic, but as someone grappling with the consequences of past choices. Johnson's ability to oscillate between bombastic humor and genuine vulnerability gives Maui a three-dimensional quality. The trailer teases moments where Maui's bravado slips, revealing self-doubt and loneliness that feel very human despite his mythic status. There's a memorable beat in one of the scenes where his expressive tattoos, animated with fluidity, almost act as a visual extension of his emotions, emphasizing the internal conflicts Johnson is vocalizing. Maui, in this retelling, isn't just comic relief or a sidekick. He's an essential narrative force who challenges and complements Moana's growth at every turn. A significant addition to this iteration of Moana is Taika Waititi, who voices a newly introduced character named Kaikane, a mystical guide who helps Moana navigate the spiritual aspects of her journey. Waititi's signature humor comes through subtly, ensuring that Kaikane is witty without ever undermining the gravitas of the narrative. The film leans on Waititi's comedic timing to inject levity at crucial points, balancing moments of tension and danger. But it's not just jokes. Kaikane embodies a sort of ancient wisdom, and Waititi manages to deliver lines that feel simultaneously playful and profound, adding a layer of philosophical texture to the story that complements the broader mythological themes. Another remarkable presence is Rachel House, reprising her role as Moana's grandmother, Tala. In this version, her character is expanded to emphasize the intergenerational dialogue that is central to Moana's growth. House's performance is grounded and intimate, providing the emotional anchor for the film. Her delivery, full of warmth, gentle humor, and the occasional sharp insight, helps to flesh out the family and community dynamics. Tala is not just a guiding figure. She's a manifestation of cultural memory and storytelling, which resonates strongly given the Polynesian-inspired context. House has this uncanny ability to make her character feel simultaneously larger than life and intimately real. And in the 2026 film, those qualities shine more than ever. Moana's parents, voiced by Temuera Morrison as Chief Tui and Lucy Lawless as Sina, provide another layer of emotional resonance. Morrison brings a paternal gravitas to Tui, portraying him as a leader who loves his daughter, but is constrained by fear and tradition. His voice exudes authority without ever feeling authoritarian, which is key to making the tension between Tui and Moana feel authentic. Morrison communicates this internal struggle with subtle inflections, particularly in scenes where he expresses concern over Moana's ambition and the dangers of the ocean. Meanwhile, Lawless brings a nuanced warmth and steady grounding to Sina. Her performance highlights the balance between guidance and empathy, portraying a mother who supports her daughter while being acutely aware of the risks Moana faces. Together, Morrison and Lawless create a familial foundation that makes Moana's eventual departure from the island feel both poignant and fraught with emotional stakes. An exciting new addition to the cast is Sterling K. Brown, voicing a character named Rao, a rival voyager from a neighboring island. Brown's performance adds tension and complexity, as Rao challenges Moana's assumptions about leadership and courage. He's charismatic, intelligent, and slightly antagonistic, but never a caricatured villain. Brown brings depth to Rao, making him a mirror for Moana's own fears and ambitions. Scenes with him allow the audience to see Moana's growth through contrast, and Brown's nuanced vocal work ensures that these interactions are layered and compelling, rather than formulaic. The film also benefits from a strong supporting ensemble that gives the Polynesian-inspired world richness and texture. Carla Souza voices Leilani, a close friend of Moana's, who provides comic relief but also moral support and grounding. Souza's chemistry with Laga'aia is natural, adding authenticity to the friendship dynamic. Jason Momoa, interestingly, has a cameo as Taka, a legendary oceanic warrior whose brief appearances lend a sense of mythic continuity to the narrative. Momoa's imposing presence and resonant voice lend weight to the lore, and even in limited screen time, he makes a memorable impression, reinforcing the sense that the world Moana inhabits is vast and inhabited by formidable figures. One of the most notable performances in the film comes from Awkwafina, who voices a comical but surprisingly insightful character named Nalu, a sea creature who becomes Moana's unexpected ally. Awkwafina brings her trademark energy and quick wit, but there's also a surprising emotional subtlety to her delivery. Nalu is more than comic relief. She represents Moana's ability to form connections with beings and forces beyond human comprehension. Awkwafina's timing, pitch, and expressive modulation give Nalu a distinct personality, making her instantly memorable while fitting seamlessly into the story's mythological context. The casting choices for Moana 2026 are clearly designed with authenticity and cultural sensitivity in mind. Many of the actors, including Laga'aia, House, Morrison, and Lawless, have Polynesian heritage or connections, which ensures that the performances carry cultural credibility. This isn't just about representation, it's about grounding the story in real-world traditions and aesthetics. And the voice cast's understanding of that cultural texture enriches every line of dialogue. The filmmakers took pains to consult cultural advisors, and the cast's performances reflect that deep engagement, bringing nuance and respect to the portrayal of these communities. Additionally, the film includes some smaller but important roles that flesh out Moana's community and highlight the stakes of her journey. Mahershala Ali lends his voice to Koro, a shamanic figure whose presence is brief but catalytic. Ali's resonant voice gives weight to each word, emphasizing the spiritual dimensions of Moana's adventure. Similarly, Gemma Chan voices Lehua, a navigator whose calm authority contrasts with Moana's youthful energy, creating moments of mentorship and reflection. Even these supporting roles are treated with care, reinforcing the film's emphasis on interpersonal relationships and community rather than isolating Moana as a solitary hero. The ensemble voice cast also contributes to the film's musical dimension. Moana's songs, while led by Laga'aia, are often accompanied by harmonies and choral parts voiced by the supporting cast, which deepens the emotional resonance of key sequences. Maui's occasional singing moments, delivered by Johnson, provide both humor and character insight, while House's and Lawless's vocal contributions reinforce familial bonds in ways that dialogue alone could not achieve. The cast's musical performances blend seamlessly with the orchestration, creating a sonic world that feels immersive and culturally textured. Finally, it's worth noting that the chemistry among the cast members, despite much of their work being done in recording booths, is palpable. The film's directors and voice coaches clearly emphasize creating a conversational, naturalistic tone, and that pays off in scenes where Moana interacts with Maui, her family, or allies like Kaikane and Rao. These interactions feel spontaneous, alive, and emotionally credible. Each cast member brings a distinct rhythm and energy to their lines, which, when combined, produces a dynamic and multi-layered dialogue experience. The result is a voice cast that not only performs individual roles convincingly, but also collectively creates a believable, vibrant world. In summary, the cast of Moana 2026 is a masterclass in voice casting. Catherine Laga'aia anchors the story with emotional authenticity. Dwayne Johnson elevates Maui with humor and depth, and the supporting cast, from Taika Waititi to Sterling K. Brown to Rachel House, adds complexity, humor, and cultural resonance. The film balances star power with authenticity, blending recognizable voices with performers chosen for their cultural connections and interpretive skills. Each role is carefully designed to serve the narrative while contributing to the emotional, musical, and mythological texture of the film. This ensemble ensures that Moana 2026 doesn't feel like just another animated adventure. It feels like a living, breathing world populated by characters whose relationships, choices, and growth are integral to the story's heart. By the time you experience the full film, you'll notice how much the cast's performances elevate even small moments. A glance, a pause, a subtle inflection, turning them into emotionally resonant beats that enhance the narrative flow. This is a film where casting isn't just about names on a marquee. It's about carefully curating voices that bring authenticity, humor, gravitas, and heart to a story that is both epic in scope and deeply personal in its emotional stakes. From the very opening moments, Moana 2026 establishes a world that feels alive, breathing, and steeped in tradition, while simultaneously hinting at the grand adventure to come. The film begins on the island of Motunui, framed with breathtaking vistas that make the island itself feel like a character. You see the waves lapping gently against the shore, palm trees swaying with the ocean breeze, and the warmth of sunlight illuminating the village. It's a visual language that instantly conveys the duality of serenity and underlying tension. Life on Motunui is abundant and picturesque, yet there's a sense of restriction, a barrier between what exists within the safe confines of the island and the limitless world beyond the horizon. This tension is immediately personified in Moana herself, who, even as a child, exhibits a restless curiosity that sets her apart from her peers. Young Moana, voiced in the childhood sequences by a slightly younger actor whose inflections mirror Laga'aia's adult tone, is fascinated by the ocean in a way that borders on obsession. She sneaks out to the shore, watches the horizon, and interacts with small marine life in sequences that subtly introduce her bond with nature. These moments aren't just visual fluff. They're designed to communicate Moana's intrinsic connection to the ocean and her innate yearning for discovery. Early interactions with her family and community emphasize this contrast. While villagers go about their daily tasks, content within the boundaries of their island, Moana's imagination and ambition are drawn outward, toward the unknown. Her curiosity is portrayed as both endearing and slightly frustrating to the adults around her, particularly her father, Chief Tui. Chief Tui, voiced by Temuera Morrison, embodies a nuanced tension between authority and affection. His concern for Moana isn't mere overprotectiveness. It stems from historical experiences and a sense of duty to the island's well-being. Tui's dialogue, delivered with a subtle gravitas, frames the stakes of the story in terms of generational responsibility. The survival of Motunui is tied to the choices of its leaders, and he worries that the allure of the ocean may expose his daughter to dangers the village has long avoided. These early familial dynamics establish emotional stakes that will resonate throughout the narrative, and Morrison's measured vocal performance ensures that Tui's warnings are felt as protective, not punitive. Parallel to these familial scenes, the film introduces Moana's grandmother, Tala, voiced once again by Rachel House. Tala is an intriguing contrast to Tui. She's mystical, unorthodox, and deeply in tune with the spiritual and mythological aspects of their culture. Early interactions between Moana and Tala serve as narrative foreshadowing. Tala's storytelling, rich with allegories and legends of the demigod Maui and the history of the islands, plants seeds for the journey that Moana will eventually undertake. House's delivery, imbued with warmth, authority, and subtle humor, ensures that Tala feels like both a mentor and a spiritual guide without ever feeling preachy. These sequences are vital because they contextualize Moana's eventual decisions in a cultural and emotional framework, allowing the audience to understand her motivations in depth. The first major narrative turning point occurs when the island faces a tangible threat, a sudden blight affecting the crops and fisheries. The visual storytelling here is masterful. Lush fields wither overnight, fish populations dwindle, and there's a pervasive sense of unease as the villagers grapple with the disruption of their normally harmonious life. This environmental threat isn't arbitrary. It's tied directly to the larger mythological framework of the story, implying a cosmic imbalance caused by the theft of the heart of Te Fiti, which the demigod Maui had taken centuries prior. The trailer had hinted at this, but in the full story, the film carefully unpacks it without overwhelming the viewer. The stakes are clear. If Moana does not act, the island may face irreversible ecological and societal consequences. At this point, Moana's restlessness evolves from curiosity to necessity. The narrative gives her an internal arc that is simultaneously personal and heroic. She feels a calling she cannot articulate, a tug from the ocean that hints at destiny, adventure, and self-discovery. These sequences are interspersed with quiet, contemplative shots of the ocean, rendered with astonishing realism. The water is a character unto itself, sometimes calm and nurturing, sometimes tumultuous and dangerous, mirroring Moana's own emotional journey. Catherine Laga'aia's vocal performance captures this evolution seamlessly, with moments of doubt, excitement, and tentative resolve that are entirely human. You can feel her internal struggle as she weighs loyalty to her family against the irresistible pull of the ocean. Enter Maui, voiced by Dwayne Johnson. His introduction is spectacular in scale and charisma. He appears in a sequence that is both humorous and narrative critical. A dramatic, over-the-top display of his powers establishes him immediately as a legendary figure, while simultaneously grounding him with comedic timing and human flaws. Johnson's vocal performance infuses Maui with a layered personality, boisterous, ego-driven, and yet capable of vulnerability. Their first encounter is a mix of tension, humor, and mutual skepticism. Moana's initial awe gives way to frustration, as Maui is not the cooperative partner she initially expects. This dynamic establishes one of the film's central relationships, a partnership based on mutual challenge, learning, and gradual respect. Maui's past actions, hinted at through dialogue and flashbacks, create a moral complexity to his character. He is not a flawless hero. He is a demigod whose pride and past mistakes have tangible consequences. And this shapes the mentorship he inadvertently provides Moana. The journey across the ocean introduces both physical and narrative challenges. The film leverages visual storytelling to communicate obstacles in innovative ways. Storm sequences are rendered with a kinetic realism that makes the ocean feel alive and unpredictable. Waves are not just background scenery. They interact with characters, creating tangible stakes. These sequences test Moana's skill, courage, and resilience, while also functioning as metaphorical beats in her personal development. Each encounter with natural hazards or mythological creatures is layered with both immediate danger and thematic resonance, reinforcing the narrative's focus on courage, self-reliance, and ethical decision-making. Early on, the story also introduces Kaikane, voiced by Taika Waititi, who serves as both comic relief and spiritual guide. Kaikane's witty, sometimes cryptic dialogue provides guidance that is subtle, often requiring Moana to interpret his words and apply lessons herself. This dynamic reinforces the theme of personal agency. Moana is not spoon-fed solutions. Waititi's performance is a masterclass in balancing humor with narrative function, ensuring that Kaikane contributes meaningfully to both the plot and Moana's character arc. As Moana and Maui progress further into the open ocean, the film begins to layer in richer mythological elements that deepen the narrative beyond the initial adventure setup. The storytelling becomes increasingly sophisticated, weaving together cultural lore, environmental stakes, and the psychological dimensions of the characters. One of the most compelling aspects of this middle section is how it treats the ocean not just as a setting, but as an active participant in Moana's journey. The ocean is alive, responsive, and unpredictable, often reflecting Moana's emotional state. In early sequences, gentle waves seem to nudge her forward, while turbulent waters challenge her resolve. This duality reinforces the film's recurring theme. Growth often arises from the tension between comfort and danger. The dynamic between Moana and Maui continues to evolve. At first, their partnership is marked by playful antagonism. Maui's ego and habit of underestimating Moana's capabilities create moments of friction, which are balanced by humor that never feels gratuitous. Dwayne Johnson's voice work conveys both the larger-than-life bravado of a demigod and subtle traces of insecurity rooted in his character's past failings. The film explores this complexity with nuance. Maui is not a static mentor or sidekick figure, but a flawed character whose growth parallels Moana's. Their bickering and collaborative problem-solving sequences provide levity, but they also reinforce the stakes of the journey and highlight the complementary nature of their skills. Early encounters with mythological creatures add both visual spectacle and narrative tension. The film introduces a series of challenges that test Moana's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. One particularly memorable sequence involves a massive sea serpent, rendered with astonishing realism. This encounter is framed as both a literal threat and a metaphorical trial. Moana's ability to navigate the serpent's unpredictable movements reflects her growing confidence and intuition. Catherine Laga'aia's vocal performance captures her initial fear, strategic thinking, and eventual triumph, allowing the audience to experience the tension and relief in real time. These sequences emphasize that heroism in this story is as much about cleverness, patience, and emotional intelligence as it is about physical courage. Interwoven with the adventure are flashback sequences that provide context for Maui's past. Through these glimpses, we see why Maui stole the heart of Tafiti and the consequences that ensued. These flashbacks are visually distinct, utilizing a warmer, more painterly color palette to differentiate them from the present narrative. They reveal Maui's longing for acceptance and recognition, his fear of failure, and the loneliness that stems from his superhuman abilities. These insights make his character arc more compelling because they frame his initial arrogance not as mere pride, but as a defense mechanism rooted in emotional trauma. The interplay between past and present adds narrative depth, reinforcing the idea that both Moana and Maui are confronting personal challenges that extend beyond immediate physical obstacles. Tala's presence continues to guide Moana, often in the form of vision sequences or subtle spiritual nudges. These scenes underscore the film's thematic emphasis on ancestry and cultural memory. Tala's guidance is never prescriptive. She provides clues and wisdom that Moana must interpret and apply independently. This approach strengthens the narrative's focus on self-discovery and personal agency. Rachel House's vocal nuances convey warmth, humor, and gravitas, making Tala feel like both a tangible mentor and a symbolic embodiment of cultural continuity. The film skillfully balances these spiritual interludes with the more immediate, high-stakes action sequences, maintaining a rhythm that is both reflective and exhilarating. The introduction of Rao, the rival Voyager, becomes increasingly significant in this section. Rao embodies an alternative philosophy of leadership and adventure, challenging Moana to reconsider her assumptions about courage, morality, and responsibility. Sterling K. Brown's performance adds layers of charm, intelligence, and subtle antagonism, creating a nuanced foil to Moana's ethical clarity. The interactions between Moana and Rao are intellectually and emotionally engaging, as their conflicts highlight Moana's internal growth. Each encounter forces her to confront doubt, reevaluate strategy, and articulate her values. These moments underscore a recurring narrative principle. Growth emerges through engagement with challenges that push one beyond comfort zones. Another pivotal moment involves Moana's confrontation with a colossal whirlpool that threatens to derail their progress. The animation here is remarkable in its depiction of kinetic energy, scale, and danger. The sequence is not merely a spectacle, it functions as a narrative crucible, testing Moana's mastery of the elements, her trust in Maui, and her ability to synthesize intuition with learned skill. The tension is heightened by the score, which blends orchestral swells with Polynesian-inspired percussion, creating a sense of urgency and immersion. Catherine Laga'aia's vocal performance mirrors the intensity of the visuals. Her shifting tone conveys fear, focus, and emerging confidence, allowing viewers to experience the moment viscerally. Kaikane, voiced by Taika Waititi, emerges as an increasingly significant mentor figure. Through riddles, cryptic advice, and humorous interactions, he guides Moana to understand that courage and wisdom often require more than brute strength or raw instinct. Waititi balances humor and philosophical insight seamlessly, making Kaikane both entertaining and narratively indispensable. His interactions with Moana emphasize that the journey is as much about self-understanding as external success. This reinforces one of the film's core messages. Heroism is intertwined with reflection, ethical decision-making, and emotional intelligence. Throughout these sequences, the film also explores the relational dynamics between Moana and her community. Flashbacks and parallel sequences show the villagers' reliance on her leadership, even in her absence. These scenes remind the audience that Moana's journey is not solitary. It is deeply connected to her responsibilities and the well-being of her people. The tension between personal ambition and communal obligation is a recurring motif, reinforcing the complexity of Moana's character and the narrative's moral architecture. Visually, the middle section of the film elevates the world building to a near tactile level. Waves are rendered with an unprecedented sense of weight and motion. Storms convey palpable danger, and even subtle environmental details, the glint of sunlight on a reef, the shimmer of fish scales, serve both aesthetic and narrative purposes. The animation does not exist solely to dazzle. It communicates mood, stakes, and character development. For instance, when Moana is navigating treacherous reefs, the interaction of light, water, and her canoe reflects her shifting confidence, alertness, and adaptation to challenges. These visual storytelling choices demonstrate the filmmaker's commitment to integrating form and content in a way that enhances emotional resonance. The musical elements continue to play a central role. Songs and motifs are strategically placed to underscore key character moments. Moana's solo sequences feature soaring melodies that reflect both internal struggle and emerging determination. Maui's occasional interjections, often humorous, also include musical flourishes that reveal layers of personality and backstory. The integration of music, dialogue, and action sequences is seamless, ensuring that each beat contributes meaningfully to character development, narrative pacing, and thematic depth. A critical development in this part of the story involves Moana's growing mastery of navigation. Early attempts were tentative, but through trial, error, and guidance from Maui and Kaikane, she begins to assert agency over her journey. This progression is not linear. It is punctuated by setbacks, failures, and moments of self-doubt, which are essential for the emotional realism of her arc. The film emphasizes that competence and confidence are earned, not innate, a subtle but important distinction that differentiates Moana 2026 from more formulaic adventure narratives. Additionally, interpersonal growth continues to be a narrative anchor. Moana and Maui begin to develop mutual respect, with moments of vulnerability allowing each character to see beyond their ego-driven facades. This evolution is gradual and believable, and it provides a strong emotional counterbalance to the action sequences. It's in these quieter interactions, shared stories, debates over strategy, and reflective moments under starlit skies that the film deepens the audience's investment in the characters and their journey. The middle section also teases the larger mythological stakes. Hints of Te Fiti's presence, environmental imbalance, and Maui's past actions create a sense of looming consequences. These narrative threads are carefully interwoven with character arcs, ensuring that the story remains both personal and epic. The film continually reminds viewers that Moana's journey is not just a physical voyage, but an ethical and emotional one, where the resolution of external conflicts is inseparable from internal growth. Finally, this part of the story introduces subtler challenges that test Moana's moral compass. Situations arise where the right choice is not immediately clear, requiring her to weigh consequences, trust her instincts, and act with integrity. These sequences contribute to the thematic richness of the film, reinforcing that leadership and heroism are complex, context-dependent, and intertwined with responsibility. By the end of Part 2, Moana has demonstrated significant growth. She is no longer the hesitant, curious girl from the opening sequence, but a developing leader and navigator, capable of making decisions under pressure. Maui's character arc is also progressing. He begins to reconcile past failures with present responsibility, creating a parallel journey that mirrors Moana's own evolution. Together, their relationship has moved from one of reluctant cooperation to mutual dependence, laying the groundwork for the climactic trials that will follow in the next part of the story. As the journey approaches its climax, the stakes in Moana 2026 escalate dramatically, both in terms of physical danger and emotional resonance. By this point, Moana has honed her navigation skills and learned to trust both herself and the ocean. Yet the narrative makes it clear that her challenges are far from over. The filmmakers intensify the tension by introducing multi-layered obstacles that test not only her courage, but her ethical judgment, ingenuity, and ability to inspire those around her. Unlike more straightforward adventure narratives, these challenges are never solved through brute force alone. They require Moana to synthesize everything she has learned, both from her mentors and from her own experiences. One of the most gripping sequences involves Moana and Maui confronting a colossal whirlpool that serves as a literal and metaphorical crucible. The whirlpool is visually stunning, rendered with meticulous attention to water physics, lighting, and scale. Its rotation and sheer size communicate imminent danger, while the ocean's reflective qualities make the scene almost hypnotic, emphasizing the overwhelming power of nature. Moana must assess, improvise, and act decisively to navigate this treacherous obstacle. Catherine Laga'aia's vocal performance captures the emotional layers perfectly. Moments of fear give way to determination, then to exhilaration, conveying her character's evolving mastery and confidence. Maui provides assistance, but only in ways that encourage Moana to assert agency, rather than simply relying on his demigod abilities. This reinforces a central narrative theme. True heroism involves courage, intelligence, and moral choice, not just raw strength. Interwoven with these action sequences are flashbacks and reflections that deepen our understanding of Maui's arc. Dwayne Johnson's performance here is subtle, emphasizing vulnerability alongside his signature charisma. The audience gains insight into the demigod's lingering regrets about past failures and the consequences of stealing Te Fiti's heart. These moments humanize a figure often portrayed as invincible in mythology, adding dramatic weight to the unfolding events. Maui's mentorship takes on a new dimension as he models self-reflection and accountability, implicitly teaching Moana that leadership is as much about humility and growth as it is about achievement. Kaikane, voiced by Taika Waititi, continues to provide guidance, often in the form of riddles or cryptic advice that Moana must interpret. His humor remains present, but it is now balanced by gravitas, as the guidance he offers becomes increasingly relevant to the immediate stakes. Waititi's performance ensures that Kaikane never feels like a deus ex machina. Instead, he functions as a catalyst for Moana's insight, challenging her to integrate intuition, ethical reasoning, and courage. These sequences highlight a recurring motif of the film. Wisdom is earned through engagement, reflection, and action, rather than simply delivered by authority figures. The narrative complexity intensifies with Rao's reappearance. Sterling K. Brown's character now embodies both opposition and mirror for Moana's development. Rao challenges her decisions, confronts her assumptions, and tests the consistency of her moral compass. Their exchanges are intellectually and emotionally charged, prompting Moana to evaluate not only what is right, but why it is right. Brown's voice work conveys intelligence, subtle menace, and a competitive charm, creating tension without tipping into melodrama. These confrontations provide a rich counterpoint to the high-octane action sequences, grounding the adventure in character-driven conflict and reinforcing the film's thematic depth. A pivotal turning point occurs when Moana finally reaches the realm where Te Fiti's heart must be restored. The sequence is awe-inspiring visually. The landscape is both otherworldly and culturally resonant, combining lush greenery, glowing rivers of light, and towering stone formations that communicate both majesty and history. The ocean surrounds and interacts with Moana, emphasizing her connection to the natural world and her role as a mediator between human ambition and environmental stewardship. The film uses cinematic techniques, camera movement, lighting, and sound design to immerse viewers in this climactic space, ensuring that the stakes feel epic while remaining intimately tied to Moana's personal journey. In this critical sequence, Moana confronts the consequences of Maui's past actions, the environmental imbalance caused by Te Fiti's heart being stolen, and her own fears of inadequacy. Catherine Laga'aia's performance captures the multifaceted tension. Awe, responsibility, fear, and resolve all coexist in a way that feels deeply human. Her vocal inflections, pauses, and tonal shifts allow the audience to inhabit her emotional state fully, making the moment both thrilling and emotionally resonant. It's a testament to the film's focus on character-driven storytelling that even amidst spectacular visual effects, the narrative remains grounded in Moana's interior journey. Maui's role in the climax is equally nuanced. He demonstrates courage and skill, but crucially, he also demonstrates accountability. The film emphasizes that heroism involves accepting responsibility for past mistakes and contributing to solutions in meaningful ways. Johnson's voice conveys a range of emotion, from pride to fear to genuine admiration for Moana's growth, underscoring the dynamic evolution of their partnership. Their combined efforts during the final confrontation highlight the thematic core of the story. Collaboration, trust, and mutual respect are essential to overcoming monumental challenges. The film also gives attention to community and intergenerational connections in this final act. Tala's spirit appears to guide Moana, reinforcing the importance of ancestral wisdom. Moana's reflections on her family and her people underscore the stakes beyond personal accomplishment. Her journey impacts the well-being of her community and honors the legacy of those who came before her. Rachel House's performance imbues these appearances with warmth and gravitas, providing emotional resonance that elevates the climactic sequences beyond mere spectacle. Music plays a significant role in heightening the tension and emotional depth. The orchestration, blending traditional Polynesian motifs with cinematic scoring, crescendos at moments of triumph, while more subtle sequences utilize harmonies and instrumentation to convey reflection, anxiety, or determination. Songs interspersed during the final sequences allow Moana's internal journey to be externalized without resorting to expository dialogue. Laga'aia's voice carries both the lyrical and narrative weight, allowing the audience to experience Moana's evolution in a multi-sensory way. One particularly memorable sequence involves Moana navigating a labyrinthine series of glowing islands and coral formations to reach Te Fiti. The animation here is exceptional. The visual rhythm of her movements, the interplay of light and shadow, and the dynamic interaction with environmental elements all combine to create a sense of peril, wonder, and discovery. Each challenge within this labyrinth tests a different aspect of Moana's growth: intelligence, intuition, moral judgment, and courage. The filmmakers intentionally layer these trials to reflect the holistic nature of heroism in this story. It is never purely physical, but a synthesis of mind, heart, and spirit. As Moana restores Te Fiti's heart, the film emphasizes thematic continuity. The act is framed not simply as a heroic victory, but as a restorative, healing gesture with far-reaching consequences for the environment, the community, and Maui's personal redemption. The ocean, previously both guide and challenge, now celebrates her success, symbolically affirming the harmony between human action and natural balance. This visual and narrative choice reinforces one of the central moral threads of the film. Courage coupled with integrity produces meaningful change. Following the restoration, the narrative shifts to resolution, balancing celebration with reflection. Villagers previously concerned about Moana's journey are now depicted integrating her newfound leadership insights into their community practices. Maui, having reconciled aspects of his past, prepares to continue his own journey of self-discovery, highlighting that growth is ongoing. These concluding moments emphasize that the film is not just an adventure tale, but also a story about responsibility, mentorship, and ethical engagement with both people and environment. Subtle details peppered throughout the final sequences elevate the narrative. Moana's relationship with minor characters, including Nalu the sea creature and Leilani, her close friend, is given satisfying closure. Awkwafina's performance as Nalu balances humor and emotional insight, providing relief and reflection during moments of narrative tension. Similarly, Moana's interactions with the supporting villagers underscore that leadership involves empathy, listening, and the capacity to inspire others. A consistent thematic through line from the opening scenes. The climax also reinforces the narrative's cultural grounding. Symbolism, ritual gestures, and ancestral guidance all reinforce that this adventure is intimately tied to heritage and tradition. The visual and auditory cues, glowing motifs, chants, and ceremonial movements, communicate reverence for the cultural framework without feeling didactic. Instead, the story allows the audience to absorb these elements naturally, enriching the mythological depth and narrative texture. By the end of Part 3, Moana's arc reaches a satisfying culmination. She has evolved from a curious, uncertain young woman into a confident leader capable of facing extraordinary challenges. Her victories are earned, her failures acknowledged, and her growth portrayed with emotional nuance. Maui's arc concludes in a parallel trajectory of redemption and self-realization. Together, their journey underscores the film's central messages. Courage, integrity, and collaboration are essential, and true heroism is inseparable from reflection, ethical engagement, and respect for one's community and environment. The narrative, from start to finish, balances spectacle, character development, cultural depth, and thematic resonance. Every sequence, whether a stormy voyage, a mystical trial, or a moment of quiet introspection, advances both plot and character. The pacing, carefully modulated, ensures that audiences are engaged both emotionally and visually, creating a cinematic experience that resonates beyond its runtime. The film's conclusion is not only gratifying but also thought-provoking, inviting viewers to reflect on the interconnectedness of courage, responsibility, and cultural heritage. Moana 2026 officially hit theaters in the United States on November 20th, 2026, strategically positioned for the Thanksgiving holiday window, a period historically favorable for family-oriented and animated films. Disney's timing here was no accident. Holiday releases benefit from multi-generational audiences, and placing Moana during this window was a clear signal of confidence in its box office potential. Historically, Disney has leveraged this strategy effectively, as seen with Frozen 2013, Raya and the Last Dragon 2021, and other tentpole releases, where the combination of school breaks and family leisure time creates a built-in audience. For Moana 2026, the timing maximized visibility while minimizing overlap with other major blockbuster releases, such as late November superhero franchises or fall action-heavy films. The industry context surrounding Moana's release is fascinating because it reflects broader trends in animation and Hollywood production cycles. By 2026, audiences had become increasingly discerning about animated films, particularly those targeting older children and family demographics. There's a clear demand for stories that combine high-quality animation, compelling narratives, and authentic cultural representation, a demand Disney was acutely aware of. The release of Moana came at a moment when the studio was balancing nostalgia with innovation, revisiting beloved properties while also investing in new storylines that could resonate with modern sensibilities. In this light, Moana 2026 represents a synthesis of those two strategies. It builds on the original 2016 classic, retaining the mythological and musical framework fans loved, while expanding the narrative scope, character depth, and cultural authenticity to appeal to contemporary audiences. From a production standpoint, the film's release was supported by an extensive marketing campaign that leveraged multiple platforms. Disney used traditional trailers, digital content, influencer partnerships, and immersive experiences at theme parks to generate anticipation. The first teaser dropped in the summer of 2026, featuring select voice clips from Laga'aia and Dwayne Johnson, along with glimpses of the updated animation style and environmental stakes. The marketing emphasis was on adventure, emotional depth, and cultural resonance, rather than relying solely on celebrity voices or nostalgia. By positioning the film as both a continuation of the beloved story and a fresh reimagining, Disney sought to capture both longtime fans and new viewers. The industry's response leading up to release was notably enthusiastic. Analysts highlighted Disney's investment in cutting-edge animation technology, particularly for water and environmental effects. The studio's proprietary rendering of ocean dynamics, combined with motion capture techniques for character expressions, created a visual realism that was frequently cited in trade publications as a potential benchmark for animated films moving forward. The industry narrative framed Moana 2026 as a technological achievement as well as a narrative one, elevating expectations for box office performance and critical reception alike. Competitively, the film faced relatively minimal direct overlap in its release window. While other studios occasionally release animated films during the same season, Moana's combination of star power, established intellectual property, and brand trust gave it a distinct advantage. The casting of Dwayne Johnson and Laga'aia was strategically emphasized, not just in trailers, but in press coverage, interviews, and promotional appearances. Johnson, in particular, has become a reliable draw for both domestic and international audiences, and Disney leveraged this by emphasizing Maui's heroic and comedic moments in pre-release materials. The studio also highlighted the expanded role of indigenous representation in the cast and narrative, signaling a commitment to cultural authenticity, a trend increasingly demanded by both audiences and critics in the mid-2020s. Box office expectations were high, with projections ranging between $250 to $350 million domestically during the initial theatrical run, alongside substantial international revenue. Analysts cited the global appeal of adventure narratives, the established popularity of Moana's character and music, and the draw of multi-generational family audiences as key factors. Comparisons were often made to other Disney releases in the decade, including Encanto 2021, which combined music, cultural specificity, and universal themes to strong commercial and critical success. Disney's strategic timing and promotion suggested confidence in achieving not just financial success, but also cultural impact, a hallmark of their tentpole releases. Critically, the release of Moana 2026 was framed within ongoing discussions about representation and authenticity in Hollywood. The choice to cast Polynesian actors and culturally informed voice performers, alongside consultation with cultural advisors, was a clear response to past critiques of Hollywood's handling of Indigenous and Pacific narratives. Media outlets frequently highlighted how this approach elevated the film beyond conventional animation, positioning it as a benchmark for culturally respectful storytelling in family entertainment. The cast of Moana 2026 is a carefully curated ensemble that blends returning talent with new voices, ensuring both continuity and freshness for this iteration of the story. At the center is Catherine Laga'aia, reprising her role as Moana, now fully grown into a character whose maturity and confidence are palpable. Laga'aia's performance anchors the film, balancing youthful curiosity, growing wisdom, and emotional depth. Her ability to convey subtle shifts in internal state, uncertainty, determination, awe, and empathy elevates the narrative, making Moana's journey feel intimate and authentic, even amidst the film's grand spectacle. The vocal nuance she brings ensures that the character resonates with audiences beyond the visual animation, creating a fully realized human presence. Opposite her is Dwayne Johnson as Maui, the demigod whose charisma and complex personality drive much of the film's humor and tension. Johnson's vocal performance in 2026 builds on the original's larger-than-life persona, but deepens it with added layers of vulnerability, introspection, and moral ambiguity. Maui is both mentor and foil. His presence challenges Moana to confront her own limitations, while also providing guidance on courage, strategy, and leadership. Johnson's timing, particularly in scenes blending comedy and emotional stakes, adds a grounded energy to sequences that could otherwise feel fantastical or overblown. Temuera Morrison returns as Chief Tui, Moana's father, providing a steady emotional core that reflects both authority and genuine parental concern. Morrison's voice work conveys layered motivations. He wants to protect his daughter while maintaining the well-being of his people. The nuances in his performance reveal a character struggling with generational responsibility, cultural preservation, and personal pride. Tui's evolution throughout the film, shifting from cautionary authority to supportive ally, is communicated through subtle inflections and restrained emotion, highlighting Morrison's skill in balancing gravitas with warmth. Rachel House reprises her role as Tala, Moana's grandmother and spiritual guide. House's performance is both playful and profound, conveying Tala's deep connection to cultural lore and the ancestral wisdom of Motunui. Tala serves as a moral compass and narrative anchor, and House's voice work ensures that the character's guidance feels organic rather than expository. Through vision sequences and memory-driven interactions, Tala shapes Moana's understanding of responsibility, leadership, and courage. House imbues the role with humor, tenderness, and authority, making Tala a memorable and enduring character in the narrative landscape. Sterling K. Brown joins the cast as Rao, a rival voyager whose philosophy and actions serve as a counterpoint to Moana's moral clarity. Brown's performance adds complexity and tension. Rao is neither a traditional antagonist nor a simplistic foil. His charisma, intelligence, and subtle intimidation create nuanced conflict, forcing Moana to think critically and ethically. Brown's vocal modulation, timing, and emotional layering make Rao a multi-dimensional character whose presence elevates the stakes beyond simple physical confrontation. Taika Waititi voices Kaikane, a mystical guide whose humor and cryptic wisdom support Moana's growth. Waititi balances comedy with gravitas, providing both levity and philosophical insight. Kaikane's role is intentionally ambiguous, challenging Moana to interpret guidance and apply lessons independently. Waititi's vocal performance ensures that Kaikane is memorable not merely for jokes, but for his meaningful contributions to Moana's journey of self-discovery. Supporting cast members include Awkwafina as Nalu, a spirited sea creature who provides emotional support and occasional comic relief. Awkwafina's energetic performance complements Laga'aia's grounded Moana, creating moments of warmth and levity during high-stakes sequences. Other returning characters, including the villagers of Motunui, are voiced by a blend of Polynesian talent, ensuring cultural authenticity. Each minor character serves a purpose, reflecting community values, presenting narrative challenges, or reinforcing Moana's connection to her heritage. The animation team collaborated closely with cultural consultants, ensuring that each character's appearance, behavior, and dialogue reflected Polynesian traditions authentically. Facial expressions, body language, and vocal inflections were all meticulously crafted to enhance emotional resonance. This level of detail allows the cast's performances to translate seamlessly into animated form, ensuring that audiences connect with the characters on a human level, despite the fantastical setting. Overall, the cast of Moana 2026 represents a deliberate balance between continuity and innovation. Returning actors provide emotional consistency, while new voices expand the narrative's complexity. Each performer contributes to a layered ensemble where humor, tension, and emotional depth coexist naturally. The synergy between voice acting, animation, and cultural authenticity ensures that characters are fully realized, relatable, and memorable, forming the backbone of a story that is visually stunning, narratively rich, and emotionally resonant. Moana 2026 unfolds as a sweeping adventure set against the lush, vibrant backdrop of the Pacific Islands, immersing viewers in a world where mythology, nature, and personal growth intertwine seamlessly. At its core, the plot follows Moana, a spirited and determined young woman whose curiosity about the ocean drives her toward a journey that will define both her character and her community. The narrative is deeply rooted in themes of courage, responsibility, and self-discovery, yet it remains accessible to audiences of all ages through its combination of humor, heart, and spectacle. From the very first frames, the film establishes Motunui as a place of balance and harmony. The island's community thrives on tradition and continuity, maintaining a rhythm of life that has persisted for generations. The animation emphasizes not only the physical beauty of the island, but also its social and cultural cohesion. Villagers are depicted performing daily rituals, tending to crops, and interacting with one another in ways that feel lived in and genuine. These early sequences are crucial as they establish the stakes for the story. Moana's eventual journey is not simply a personal quest, but one with profound implications for her people and the natural world around them. The narrative's inciting tension arises when Moana becomes aware of subtle but escalating disruptions to her environment. These disturbances, diminished fish populations, failing crops, and a general sense of unease, serve as early warnings that balance has been upset. This contextualizes Moana's journey in ecological and ethical terms, suggesting that her quest is as much about restoration and stewardship as it is about adventure. The plot is structured around her response to these emerging crises, balancing internal character development with external obstacles in a way that feels organic rather than contrived. Moana's motivation is anchored in a deep-seated connection to the ocean, which functions almost as a character itself throughout the film. The ocean is both guide and challenge, presenting opportunities, warnings, and tests that mirror Moana's evolving understanding of herself. The spoiler-free overview avoids detailing specific mythological artifacts or climactic events. But it is important to note that the narrative consistently uses the ocean as a thematic and narrative device. Scenes of Moana interacting with water, whether navigating calm seas, stormy waves, or mysterious phenomena, underscore her courage, intuition, and resourcefulness, making the journey feel dynamic and multidimensional. Alongside Moana, the film introduces a variety of secondary characters who enrich the plot without overshadowing the protagonist. Maui, the demigod voiced by Dwayne Johnson, serves as both a source of guidance and challenge. Their relationship is characterized by playful antagonism, moral debate, and mutual growth. Supporting figures, including mystical guides and community members, contribute to Moana's understanding of leadership, ethics, and responsibility. Each interaction, no matter how brief, is designed to challenge Moana to think critically and act decisively, reinforcing the overarching theme of personal growth. The narrative structure skillfully balances action, humor, and reflection, Adventure sequences are high stakes and visually dynamic, yet they are interspersed with quieter moments that allow Moana to internalize lessons, reflect on her motivations, and develop her leadership skills. Humor is woven naturally into dialogue and character interactions, providing levity without diminishing the tension or emotional weight of key moments. This balance ensures that the story maintains pacing that is engaging and emotionally satisfying. While the film is rich with cultural and mythological elements, it remains grounded in universal human experiences. Themes such as the tension between tradition and innovation, the challenge of stepping into responsibility, and the discovery of one's own agency are explored through Moana's journey. Viewers encounter situations that are both extraordinary and relatable, allowing the story to resonate on multiple levels. The careful integration of these themes distinguishes the film from simpler adventure narratives, giving it depth and staying power for both young audiences and adult viewers. Musical sequences continue to play a critical role in shaping the plot and emotional arc. Songs punctuate narrative beats, conveying internal resolution, emotional resolution, and character evolution. These musical moments are seamlessly integrated into the storytelling, rather than feeling like interruptions, providing insight into Moana's internal world and reinforcing key thematic points. The melodies and lyrics are crafted to resonate emotionally without revealing plot specifics, making them effective narrative tools in a spoiler-free context. The plot also emphasizes relational dynamics within Moana's community and with her mentors. These relationships are central to understanding the stakes and the protagonist's growth. Conflicts are not merely external. Internal struggles, doubts, and moral dilemmas form a core component of the narrative. The story carefully balances character development with adventure, ensuring that each action sequence or fantastical encounter has emotional consequences and narrative significance. Ultimately, the spoiler-free plot of Moana 2026 is a story of self-discovery, responsibility, and courage. It follows a hero who must navigate complex challenges, both external and internal, while staying true to her values and cultural heritage. The narrative is visually spectacular, emotionally resonant, and thematically rich, offering an experience that is as thought-provoking as it is entertaining. Audiences can expect a story that inspires, delights, and encourages reflection on the ways in which individual choices intersect with community, tradition, and the natural world. Watching Moana 2026 feels like stepping into a cinematic tapestry where every thread, visual, musical, narrative, and emotional, has been woven with care, precision, and intent. From the very beginning, the film establishes a rhythm that balances adventure, humor, and introspection, avoiding the pitfalls of conventional animated sequels or reimaginings. Unlike projects that rely solely on nostalgia or spectacle, this iteration expands the story world thoughtfully, giving longtime fans a sense of continuity, while introducing fresh challenges, characters, and stakes that make the film feel alive and necessary. One of the most immediate observations is the level of detail in the animation. The ocean, a central character in the story, is rendered with breathtaking realism. Each wave, ripple, and reflection is carefully calibrated to convey emotion, tension, or calm. Scenes where Moana navigates treacherous waters are immersive in a way that almost demands you lean into the screen. The lighting, color palettes, and environmental design do more than dazzle. They communicate narrative and emotional beats. For example, the transition from serene lagoons to storm-laden seas mirrors Moana's internal progression from curiosity to mastery, subtly reinforcing her psychological arc without explicit exposition. The performances are another highlight. Catherine Laga'aia embodies Moana with a combination of vulnerability, determination, and nuanced humor. It's evident in every inflection that this Moana is more self-assured, yet still relatable. A young woman grappling with responsibility, curiosity, and courage. Dwayne Johnson as Maui brings the perfect blend of bravado and vulnerability. His comedic timing remains impeccable, but the 2026 version adds layers of introspection that elevate him from a charming sidekick to a fully realized mentor with his own internal journey. The interactions between Laga'aia and Johnson are the heartbeat of the film. Their chemistry carries humor, tension, and emotional resonance effortlessly. Supporting voices, including Rachel House as Tala, Sterling K. Brown as Rao, and Taika Waititi as Kai Kane, contribute meaningfully to the story rather than simply serving as background color. Tala's guidance is wise, but never condescending. Rao's challenges are intellectually and emotionally stimulating, and Kai Kane balances comic relief with philosophical insight. Each character serves the dual purpose of enriching Moana's journey, while reflecting broader thematic ideas about leadership, courage, and ethical decision-making. Even minor characters are given thoughtful touches, small gestures, vocal nuances, or visual details that make the world feel inhabited and authentic. The narrative structure is particularly strong. Unlike some animated films that rely on episodic adventures loosely connected, Moana 2026 maintains a coherent through line where every encounter, challenge, or dialogue moment contributes to character development or thematic reinforcement. The pacing is deliberate yet dynamic. Moments of quiet reflection are interspersed with high-stakes sequences, ensuring the audience remains emotionally invested without feeling fatigued. The film also avoids overloading exposition, allowing the mythology and world-building to unfold naturally through character interactions, visual cues, and environmental storytelling. Musically, the film is a triumph. Songs are woven seamlessly into the narrative, enhancing emotional beats and character growth rather than interrupting the story. They range from soaring solos that reflect Moana's internal struggle and determination to ensemble pieces that underscore community, culture, and shared values. The orchestration blends traditional Polynesian motifs with cinematic scoring, producing a soundscape that feels both authentic and epic. Importantly, the songs avoid feeling forced. They emerge organically from the story and elevate rather than dominate it. Thematically, Moana 2026 is sophisticated. It explores courage, leadership, self-discovery, and environmental stewardship in ways that resonate with both younger and older audiences. The film emphasizes that heroism is not simply about physical prowess or daring feats. It's about emotional intelligence, ethical judgment, and the capacity to grow from mistakes. The story challenges Moana, and, by extension, the audience, to recognize the interconnectedness of individual choices, community well-being, and natural balance. These themes are neither heavy-handed nor preachy. They are integrated into the narrative organically, providing depth and reflection without slowing the momentum. Visually, the film sets a new benchmark for animated storytelling. From sweeping ocean vistas to intricately detailed island flora and fauna, every frame is crafted to immerse viewers in a tangible world. The attention to environmental interaction, how characters move through water, sand, and vegetation, is meticulous. Even seemingly small gestures, like the reflection of sunlight on Moana's skin or the sway of leaves during dialogue sequences, contribute to a sense of realism and grounding. These visual subtleties, combined with expressive character animation, ensure that every emotional beat lands with clarity and impact. The film also balances humor and emotional gravity with remarkable skill. Comedy is often character-driven, emerging naturally from the interactions between Moana, Maui, and secondary characters. It never undercuts the stakes. Instead, it provides necessary relief that enhances the story's pacing. Dramatic tension is amplified through well-timed shifts in lighting, score, and choreography, ensuring that climactic sequences feel both epic and intimate. The humor, pathos, and spectacle exist in a delicate equilibrium that few animated films achieve with such consistency. Culturally, Moana 2026 demonstrates a thoughtful commitment to authenticity. Polynesian mythology, social customs, and artistic sensibilities are integrated respectfully into the story, setting a standard for culturally informed animated storytelling. The collaboration with cultural consultants is evident in character design, dialogue, ritual depiction, and music. The result is a narrative that honors its source material while remaining universally accessible, bridging the gap between specific cultural representation and global storytelling appeal. If there is any critique, it might be that the abundance of layered narrative, environmental symbolism, and complex character arcs demands attention from viewers. Younger audiences may not catch every subtle motif or thematic nuance, but the film balances this with accessible adventure, humor, and spectacle. For adult viewers or repeat audiences, however, these details provide substantial depth and reward multiple viewings, solidifying the film's staying power. Overall, Moana 2026 is a triumph on multiple fronts. It blends stunning visual artistry, emotionally rich performances, seamless musical integration, and sophisticated narrative structure into an immersive cinematic experience. It respects its cultural foundations while expanding its story world in ways that feel both fresh and meaningful. Adventure, humor, and introspection coexist without compromise, creating a film that is entertaining, inspiring, and thoughtfully constructed. For audiences seeking a story that is visually breathtaking, emotionally resonant, and thematically layered, this iteration of Moana stands out as a definitive example of modern animated storytelling done right. Moana 2026 is packed with subtle layers and hidden elements that reward attentive viewers, whether in the form of cultural nods, environmental symbolism, or clever Easter eggs referencing both the original film and broader Polynesian mythology. These details are not merely decorative, they contribute to a richer, more immersive narrative, reflecting a production that prioritizes depth and thoughtfulness. One of the most fascinating aspects is the meticulous representation of Polynesian navigation techniques. The filmmakers worked with experts in traditional wayfinding to ensure that Moana's journey across the ocean reflects authentic celestial navigation, wind patterns, and oceanic currents. While these details are not always overtly explained to the audience, observant viewers can notice how Moana charts her course using stars, wave direction, and environmental cues, a subtle nod to the sophisticated seafaring knowledge of Polynesian explorers. The film avoids over-explaining, instead allowing these elements to unfold naturally within the story, which adds realism and educational value without slowing the narrative pace. Another hidden layer involves the environmental symbolism embedded throughout the film. Every element of nature, water, flora, fauna, and weather, is carefully designed to reflect the narrative arc. For instance, shifts in ocean coloration and behavior correspond to Moana's emotional state and the balance of her world. Storms are not simply external obstacles. They visually communicate tension, uncertainty, and the consequences of imbalance in both human and natural systems. Similarly, the flora on the islands reacts dynamically to Moana's presence, subtly reinforcing the theme of interconnectedness between humans and the environment. These design choices go beyond aesthetic appeal, deepening the viewer's understanding of the story's moral and thematic undercurrents. Cultural authenticity is reinforced through linguistic and musical elements. Songs integrate motifs and rhythms inspired by Polynesian music traditions, and certain chants or phrases are in native languages, adding a layer of realism. These linguistic details often go unnoticed on a first viewing, but enrich the narrative texture, signaling respect for cultural heritage while enhancing immersion. The filmmakers also embedded subtle narrative cues within these musical pieces, melodies or harmonies that foreshadow plot developments or mirror character growth, rewarding audiences who pay close attention to both the visual and auditory storytelling layers. There are numerous Easter eggs and visual callbacks to the original Moana 2016. For example, artifacts or symbols seen in the background during village scenes often mirror those from the first film, subtly linking Moana's past experiences to her present journey. Animators place these elements with precision, allowing longtime fans to feel a sense of continuity without distracting from the new narrative. Similarly, Minor characters reappear in background sequences or as subtle visual motifs, creating an interconnected universe that feels cohesive and thoughtfully constructed. Maui's tattoos, a standout feature from the previous iteration, have been given additional layers of narrative functionality. In the 2026 version, these tattoos react to his movements, environmental cues, and emotional state, providing visual storytelling in parallel with dialogue and action. They often foreshadow his decisions, reveal internal conflicts, or even provide subtle hints to Moana's next course of action. These dynamic tattoos are a perfect example of how small visual details enhance storytelling while staying true to cultural inspiration. The animation team also included hidden nods to global audiences. Certain background sequences feature marine life and island flora that reference ecological realities, subtly raising awareness of the Pacific region's environmental fragility. Reef structures, fish behavior, and coastal topography are depicted with surprising accuracy, reflecting an attention to detail that merges artistry with educational value. These elements operate almost subliminally, creating a richer and more believable world without resorting to didactic exposition. Voice actors contributed hidden layers through improvised lines or nuanced deliveries. Laga'aia and Dwayne Johnson in particular added subtle inflections or brief humorous interjections that were retained in the final cut, giving scenes added texture and spontaneity. For example, small asides between Moana and Maui during tense sequences often hint at their mutual respect or past experiences, deepening their relationship without explicit explanation. These vocal nuances make repeated viewings more rewarding, as audiences notice new facets of character interaction each time. There are also several metatextual details embedded in environmental storytelling. Objects in Moana's village, such as carvings, tools, or ceremonial items, are designed to reflect the history, values, and daily life of her people. Animators place these intentionally to reward observant viewers. Each carving tells a story. Each artifact hints at ancestral practices, and even seemingly decorative items convey meaning about social hierarchy, resource management, and cultural continuity. These subtleties reinforce the film's underlying message that heritage and history are living parts of community life, rather than static backdrops. Moana's interactions with mystical elements, such as ocean spirits and supernatural phenomena, are also layered with hidden detail. Animators employed micro-expressions, reflective surfaces, and dynamic lighting to signal shifts in narrative tension or foreshadow character choices. For example, a glimmer in the water may signal imminent danger, or a subtle ripple may indicate the presence of a guiding force. These visual cues function as a non-verbal narrative language, encouraging audiences to engage actively with the film and rewarding careful observation. Finally, the film contains deliberate pacing and structural choices that are almost imperceptible on casual viewing. Transitions between action, reflection, and musical sequences are crafted to mirror natural emotional arcs, creating a rhythm that enhances immersion. This allows audiences to experience tension, release, and satisfaction on both conscious and subconscious levels, reinforcing the story's impact without overt manipulation. These choices reflect the filmmaker's dedication to constructing a cinematic experience that is not only entertaining, but also intellectually and emotionally engaging. In summary, Moana 2026 is a masterclass in layered storytelling. From cultural authenticity to environmental symbolism, dynamic character details, hidden visual cues, and subtle vocal inflections, every element of the film is meticulously designed to enhance both narrative and emotional impact. The hidden details, Easter eggs, and narrative nuances provide repeated rewards for attentive viewers, making the film a rich experience that goes far beyond surface-level adventure. For audiences willing to look closely, these layers deepen appreciation for the artistry, care, and thematic resonance embedded in every frame.